After watching his latest film, 28 years later, it's now time to rank all 14 feature films from Oscar-winning director Danny Boyle. While Boyle isn't necessarily known as a horror maestro, he's dabbled in the genre more than once, and many of his films contain horror elements woven throughout. Most importantly, Danny Boyle is a British icon, and since we're a UK-based channel, it's only right that we highlight and celebrate his incredible body of work. This list includes all 14 of his theatrical feature films, ranking from my least favourite to my absolute favourite. I won't be discussing his work in television, theatre, or that brilliant 2012 Olympic opening ceremony as much as I loved it. And of course, this is just my opinion, so please don't get upset if your personal favourite ends up near the bottom. Tastes differ, and that's what makes it all fun. So without further ado, here's how I rank the films of Danny Boyle from worst to best.
Then let's get started.
Kicking off this list as my least favourite Danny Boyle film is The Beach, which oddly enough is one of my dad's favourite films. Based on the Alex Garland novel of the same name, the film follows a young backpacker who discovers a secret utopian beach community, which of course turns out to be far from paradise. With Leonardo DiCaprio and Tilda Swinton in the cast, two actors I generally admire, it's surprisingly how little this film clicks with me. Visually, it's striking with Boyle's signature gritty, hyper-real style on full display, and the performances are solid across the board. But the narrative just doesn't do it for me. It feels too slow, often messy, and never quite as engaging or focused as it should be.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
A friend of mine read the book and saw the film afterwards. Let's just say she definitely preferred the book. And honestly, even though I haven't read the book myself, I can believe it's more coherent and compelling than this adaptation. It's a shame Alex Garland wasn't writing films at the time, because I'd be curious to see how he might adapt his own work today. Maybe one day he'll do the story justice. In 13th place, we have Boyle's third movie, A Life Less Ordinary. This was actually my first time watching it in preparation for this video. And honestly, I can see why this one doesn't get mentioned much alongside Boyle's other movies. The story follows two angels who must get a kidnapper to fall in love with his victim, and while that premise could be quirky fun, the execution is all over the place. It feels like a mashup of too many conflicting ideas: romance, fantasy, crime, comedy, and it never quite gels into a coherent whole.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Boyle sticks to his hyper-real energetic style, similar to Trainspotting and Shellograve, but here it doesn't feel the right match for the story being told. Even with a stacked cast including Ewan McGregor, Cameron Diaz, Daryl Lindo, Holly Hunter and Stanley Tucci, nobody really stands out the way you hope. A Life Less Ordinary comes across like Boyle's attempt to go experimental after the success of his first two films. But not all blank check movies stick the landing. This one feels more like a noble misfire rather than a hidden gem. In 12th place we have Yesterday, which feels more like a Richard Curtis film than a Danny Boyle film, which makes sense since Curtis wrote the screenplay. The film follows a struggling singer-songwriter who wakes up in a reality where the Beatles never existed and uses their music to launch his own career. While Boyle's direction is strong and the cast is fantastic, especially Himesh Patel in a brilliant breakup performance, the film has a lot of issues in its writing and concept.
Not a great plan.
The premise is undeniably intriguing, but its execution, particularly towards the end, falls flat. The film only teases the consequences of plagiarism without fully exploring them, which weakens the stakes and conflict. If Yesterday had delved deeper into the ethical and personal repercussions of its central concept, it would have been a much more clear and more compelling message. The omission feels especially ironic, given that Richard Curtis himself was accused of plagiarism regarding this script. While I do question why Danny Boyle dropped out of directing a James Bond film in favour to make a Richard Curtis-style rom-com, his direction remains the strongest element. Ultimately, though, a sharper, more developed story could have made Yesterday a true standout. In 11th place, we have another film I watched for the first time for this list. Trance, Danny Boyle's 2013 psychological thriller, and honestly, it feels like one of his forgotten films. After watching it, I can see why. The film follows an art auctioneer who gets caught up in the British crime world, but despite the intriguing setup, it ends up feeling like a fairly generic paint-by-numbers thriller.
That was impressively cunty.
That said, Boyle's direction does bring some flair, and the cast is impressive, with James McAvoy, Rosario Dawson and Vincent Cassell all giving strong performances. Visually, the film stands out. There's a slickness to it that shows Boyle still has a great eye for shots, but unfortunately, it's a plot that lets it down. It starts off promising, but becomes increasingly convoluted and predictable as it goes on. By this point in his career, Boyle has already started moving away from his hyper-real, energetic visual style, and Trance feels like it could have been directed by just anyone. It's stylish, but lacks that unique Boyle signature, and that's why it lands lower on my list. In 10th place is 127 Hours. I haven't watched this film since it came out in cinema, so revisiting it for this video was a bit strange, especially considering how my feelings towards James Franco has changed over the years due to his controversies that have surrounded him since the film's release.
Now I can't get it out of my head!
That said, from an acting perspective, Franco does deliver a strong and committed performance. What really elevates this film, though, is Danny Boyle's direction. He brings an intensity and visceral energy that makes you feel every moment of Aaron Ramsdell ordeal. It's raw, claustrophobic and deeply immersive. Yes, there's a few moments where the film drags, but to be fair, most survival films carry that risk when you're spending so much time with just one character. 127 hours isn't a film you'd rush to rewatch. It's emotionally draining at times, hard to sit through, especially that scene. And whilst I was impressed with more back then, when it first came out, the impact has lessened for me over time, especially compared to some of other Boyle's more rewatchable films. In 9th place was another film I had to watch specifically for this list, Millions. I remember this film being advertised quite a lot during the 2000s, but it's definitely fallen into the more niche corner of Boyle's filmography. The story follows a young Catholic boy who discovers a bag of stolen money just as the UK is preparing to switch to euros, which of course never happened in real life.
Man, that is flagrant false advertising.
The film has a tone that reminds me a lot of a Ken Loach film, and considering Loach's influence on Boyle's early career, that comparison makes a lot of sense. Millions captures early 2000s Britain from a child's perspective with warmth and sincerity. Boyle's direction gives it energy and flair, with his signature fast-paced editing and beautiful, vibrant cinematography that makes it stand out from your typical family drama. While it's clearly aimed at a younger audience, I really respect Boyle for making a film that speaks to a new generation of film fans. It's refreshing to see a director known for dark and more adult themes step into something more hopeful and childlike. That said, because it's one of his lesser-known works, Millions doesn't get discussed nearly as much as it should. And that's a shame, because there's generally some heart and craft into it. In 8th place we have Slumdog Millionaire, which I would argue is Boyle's most famous film, largely due to the incredible amount of hype, critical acclaim and awards it received. This underdog story follows a young boy from the slums of Mumbai who gets a shot at winning Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. When he's accused of cheating, he recounts his life story to the police, revealing how each moment in the past gave him the answers. From a filmmaking perspective, this is Boyle firing on all cylinders. It features stunning cinematography, fast-paced editing, and a tone-defining score that adds energy and emotional throughout. The non-linear storytelling is clever and engaging, giving us insight into the protagonist's life in a unique way. Dev Patel delivers a strong, heartfelt performance, supported beautifully by Frida Pinto and the late great Irfan Khan. That said, I've always had a small grudge against this film, mostly because it came out the same year as The Dark Knight, which was famously snubbed for Best Picture despite its impact.
This whole thing is silly.
But personal biases aside, Slumdog Millionaire is a fantastic example of how Boyle blends British and South Asian cultures, showing the diversity of his filmography and his ability to tell powerful human stories across the globe. In 7th place is Danny Boyle's sci-fi horror film Sunshine, a visually striking and atmospheric journey about a team of astronauts sent to reunite the dying sun. While it shares tonal similarities with Event Horizon, Sunshine stands apart thanks to its stronger premise, sharper direction and more grounded storytelling. The film excellently blends science fiction, drama and horror, gradually shifting from philosophical space odyssey to tense psychological thriller. It's a slow burn that builds to something haunting and intense, making all the more compelling by the stellar ensemble cast. With stand-up performances from Cillian Murphy, Rose Byrne, Hiroyuki Sanada, Cliff Curtis, Michelle Yeoh and Chris Evans, the crew's dynamic adds real emotional weight to the high-stake mission. Sunshine is one of Boyle's most ambitious and underrated projects. It might not be his most talked about work, but it's a film with a devoted fan base and one I'd love to explore further on the channel someday. In sixth place is Boyle's sequel to his 1996 classic, simply titled T2 Trainspotting. But for the sake of this video, I'm just going to call it Trainspotting 2. Now, I don't think this was a necessary sequel, but I appreciate how it picked up the story in a believable and emotional resonant way. Seeing the original cast slip into their iconic roles again is one of the film's biggest strengths. Ewan McGregor, Robert Carlyle, Ewan Brenger and John Lee Miller all slip back into their characters seamlessly, and it's great to see where their lives have taken them 20 years later. The story is functional and well structured, offering a mature look at regret, nostalgia and ageing, all through that classic Trainspotting lens. However, my biggest issue with the film is the shift in visual style. Gone is the raw, hyper-real chaos of the original. Trainspotting 2 feels more polished and prestige-driven, which loses some of its gritty, bonkers energy that made the first film so unforgettable.
Cool, yeah. If it ain't broke.
I get that Boyle's style has evolved in the 2010s, but part of me wishes that he brought that back for the original madness. Still, it's a solid sequel and one that's worth watching for fans of the original Trainspotting like myself. Kicking off the top 5 is the latest entry in this list, 28 Years Later, which marks Danny Boyle's triumphant return to horror with easily one of his most visually daring and emotional grounded entries in his filmography. Written by Alex Garland, it blends bleak post-apocalyptic Britain with a child's wide-eyed perspective, creating an intimate yet harrowing tone. Boyle's signature grit is back, making him feel more alive as a director than he's been in over a decade. Shot entirely on iPhone by Anthony Dub Martel, the film takes huge visual risks that brilliantly immerse you in the world. It's a bold, kinetic experience, telling a character-driven story that never loses sight of its human cost. Performances from breakout star Alfie Williams and a haunting, restrained Ralph Fiennes ground the film emotionally. Boyle excels in atmosphere, pacing and tension, whilst Garland's writing guides the story's emotional weight. The only thing holding it back from my top 3 is its controversial ending, which left me conflicted.
Weird.
Still, it's an outstanding return to form for both Boyle and the franchise, reaffirming why he's one of the best and most versatile and fearless filmmakers working today. Just missing out on the top 3 is Steve Jobs, Danny Boyle's sharply well-crafted biopic of the Apple founder. The film unfolds across 3 key product launch in Jobs' life, with Michael Fassbender stepping into the iconic role. I didn't have time to revisit this one for the video, but it's still fresh in my mind. I watched it just a few years ago and it left a real impression.
You just hold on for 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Sublime!
With a screenplay by Aaron Sorkin, the film naturally draws comparisons to The Social Network. It says the same rhythm, fast-paced dialogue, and tightly structured storytelling. Fassbender is brilliant in the lead role, bringing intensity and complexity to the character, with Kate Winslet, Jeff Daniels and Seth Rogen all delivering excellent supporting performances. Daniel Pemberton's store adds a layer of tension and emotion, making the extended conversations generally gripping. Boyle's direction gives the film a kinetic energy, keeping it visually compelling, even with the confined setting. It's not a carbon copy of The Social Network, it stands firmly on its own. This is a great showcase of what happens when Sorkin's writing and Boyle's direction click into place. Steve Jobs is one of Boyle's most underrated films, and I really think it deserves more love than it usually gets. Before I dive into my top 3 Danny Boyle films, I just want to remind you guys to like this video, subscribe to Fright, Flix and follow us on social media so you don't miss a single scare. What's your favourite Danny Boyle film, and how would you rank his filmographies? Please let me know in the comments down below, as I'd love to see how your list compares to mine. Now, back to the video. Let's dive into my top 3.
Top 3?
Taking the bronze spot on this list is 28 Days Later, the film where Danny Boyle proved he could tackle horror just as confidently as drama or crime.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Working from a Rageous Shark strip by Alex Garland, Boyle injects the raw, gritty energy into the post-apocalyptic nightmare a film that didn't just revive the zombie genre, it redefined it. But this isn't just a movie about infected rage monsters. At its core, 28 Days Later is a haunting story of survival, humanity, and the terrifying speed at which society can collapse. Cillian Murphy gives a brilliant breakout performance as Jim, with strong support from Naomi Harris, Brendan Gleeson, and a chilling Christopher Eccleston. The digital cinematography from Anthony Dodd Mattel lends the film a lo-fi documentary-style realism, and John Murphy's haunting score gives it truly unforgettable atmosphere. Even though Boyle has distanced himself from calling it a zombie film, there's no denying the impact 28 Days Later had on the genre. It's gritty, emotionally terrifying, and absolutely one of the finest and most influential films of the genre. In second place, we have Danny Boyle's directorial debut, Shallow Grave. I watched it for the first time this year in preparation for this video, as it's a film I always wanted to check out, especially with Ewan McGregor and Christopher Eccleston in the cast, two actors I genuinely love. This dark thriller follows three housemates who set off a chain of deadly events after dismembering and burying a mysterious tenant who dies, leaving behind a large sum of money. Boyle's direction is fantastic as he brings his signature style to this deeply unsettling story. The cast is excellent, with Christopher Eccleston delivering one of his best performances and Ewan McGregor making a name for himself in his early career. However, it's John Hodgson's screenplay that makes Shallow Grave so compelling. Thanks to its gripping narrative and eerie moments that cement it as one of Boyle's darkest films. Shallow Grave is a brilliant directorial debut film and remains one of Boyle's strongest films to date. He showcases his talent for crafting striking visuals that elevate the story, as well as his ability to draw incredible performances from lesser-known actors, helping them break into the industry. Even in his first film, Boyle's distinctive style shines through, providing he stands out as a great director.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
But topping my list and taking the crown of my absolute favourite Danny Boyle film is his 1996 classic Trainspotting, a landmark in British cinema. Set in Scotland, the film dives headfirst into the lives of heroin users as they attempt to escape their addiction and find some sense of purpose. I'll never forget the first time I saw this movie. Back then, it was the most bonkers film I've ever seen. Granted, I've seen weirder since, but even now, it still hits just as hard. What makes Trainspotting stand out is its bold and energetic visual style. The combination of Brian Tufano's gritty yet stylized cinematography and Danny Boyle's electrifying direction creates something truly unforgettable. The performances are career-defining across the board. Ewan McGregor shines as the lead role, while Robert Carlyle completely steals the show as the unpredictable and terrifying Begbie. John Hodge's script, adapted from Ivan Welsh's novel, brings a raw, layered narrative to life. It's funny, disturbing, tragic, and somehow hopeful all in one. Trainspotting is Danny Boyle's masterpiece. It's not just a film, it's an experience. With powerful storytelling, iconic performances, and a daring style, earns its place as an essential part of British cinema and cements Boyle's legacy as one of the UK's finest directors.
Magnificent! Magnificent! Magnificent!
Thank you all for watching today's video. Please check out all 14 of Danny Boyle's films and form an opinion. The film is subjective and that's what makes it fun. If you've enjoyed this video, please check out all my past content and join me next time when I cover the latest from David Cronenberg. Until then, keep the chills alive and as always, stay spooky.